Hi, my name is Nathan and welcome to the Daily Word. On today's episode of the Daily Word, we'll be in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. Let's read the scripture together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith.
Our daily word for today is the word fought. Let's say this word together. Fought. So what does the word fought mean? Well, fought is the past tense of the word fight. So let's look at the word fight first. So what does it mean to fight? Well, when you fight something, there's a conflict or there's a resistance. So you have one thing fighting against another thing. So for example, in an extreme situation, maybe you have a fight between enemies. You have a fight between one person and another. So there's a conflict, there's division, and they actually engage in that conflict. It's not just a disagreement, it's not just division, but there's actual engagement, one against the other, maybe physically or in other forms, but there's actually an engagement opposing each other. Or in a day-to-day basis, maybe we fight colds. We get stricken by a cold and we have a stuffy nose or we're sneezing or coughing, and we fight the cold. How? Not with our fists, but with medication or with rest or with lots of water. So we're actively engaging in a fight against the cold. So when you're fighting against something, you're engaged in that struggle. It's not just passive, but you're engaged in resisting or overcoming that obstacle. So fought is just the past tense of that word fight. So now that we have a basic understanding of the word fought, the past tense of fight, let's put it back into the scripture. What we have in this verse is Paul communicating to Timothy, kind of summing up his ministry. And he says, I fought the good fight. So the question to us, understanding this verse, is what's the fight? Well, I think a lot of people neglect to realize that as a Christian who's engaged in walking with Jesus, being a Christian is a struggle and there is a fight. Now the mistake is to believe that you're actually fighting against people that don't believe, or you're fighting against the world, but it's not that. The fight is between the holiness of Christ's Spirit in you and the sinfulness of who you are by nature, the sinful nature against the holy nature. And to realistically and to really engage in the presence of Christ in your life, there has to be a conflict. There is no common ground between Christ's Spirit and the sinfulness in our hearts. When they meet, there is a clash, there's a struggle, and there's a fight. So whereas much of being a Christian is joy and peace and liberty and freedom, and those are truths, and as a Christian, believing in the gospel of Jesus, you will encounter those. That's a guarantee, is that by the Spirit of Jesus in you, you will have His Spirit of peace and His Spirit of joy, abundant joy and freedom and courage and strength. All of those remain true. But the interaction between His Spirit and your spirit and my spirit is a fight. And what Paul says is, he says, I fought the good fight. That means that he's engaged in the struggle, he's acknowledged it, he's engaged in it, and he's kept fighting. It's so easy to stop. It's so easy to quit. It's so easy to have a season where you fought so hard, and you've prayed, and you've really pressed into the truths of the gospel in fellowship in every way you can possibly imagine, and then you've just run out of energy. You've run out of everything, and you stop, and you quit. And the reality coming to us from Paul in this verse is that it's an ongoing struggle. But with the ongoing struggle, there is the promise of the ongoing revelation of God's power working in you. So the challenge to you and the challenge to me is, will you keep fighting and keep allowing God to reveal His power and presence in your life? Because that's the promise too, is not just that you will have His presence and everything will go right, but He's saying as you realize that you can do less, you will realize that He can always do more. But in order to understand that, in order to really experience that, we have to keep fighting. So whether that's at work or with relationships that are strained, whatever it is, will you keep fighting the good fight? Not just because that's what the Bible tells you to do, but because in doing that, you will experience the revelation of God's power and sovereignty over your life more and more as you submit and say, Lord, I will continue to fight. So never be deceived that there's not a fight, because there is. Never be deceived that it's a fight against your neighbor, because it's not. And never be deceived that this fight is pointless and trivial, because the fight is there to reveal God's glory in your life and to expand that relationship you have of knowing Christ's power in your life. Fight the good fight and look back in your life knowing that you fought the good fight. Well, that does it for today's episode of The Daily Word. If you liked this video or found it helpful, go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. And then go ahead and try to use this word in daily life. What are some things that you're fighting, or some things in the past that you fought? But go into this verse with the perspective of Christ, knowing that we are being challenged to continue to fight. Keep walking forward, even if it's baby steps. Keep taking steps forward and asking the Lord to give you what you need to persevere, continue on, and fight the good fight. Well, my name is Nathan, and this was your Daily Word. See you next time.